maybe. So now it's 2:30. Yeah, so maybe I'll turn the time to you, and we can maybe wait for 1 or 2 more minutes for people to sign in and get on board. Over to you.
So Kenneth is running this, right?
Kenneth?
Yes, I'm moderating.
Cool.
Would you like to play the video first?
So it depends on how you want us to do it. We can welcome people. You can introduce me and then say, let's watch the video, and then, or whichever way, it doesn't matter. How have you been running it so far?
I think for most events like this, the speaker will play the video first, and then after that, there will be a short Q&A session at the end.
Okay, you are playing the video, right? On your end?
Yes, I'll be playing the video.
Okay, yeah. So why don't you go ahead, then I won't do anything until after the end, then I think you can introduce me if there's any questions.
All right, that's fine. Yep.
Can I make a suggestion, Kenneth, that before you start the video, ask people that, when they are actually, watching through the video, that if they have any question, that they actually put it into the chat box immediately. Don't wait till the end of the session. So that by the time we hit there, if there's any questions or comments or insights, we can actually immediately just jump on it. Because the video is only about 25 minutes.
Yeah, sure.
All right, cool. Yes. And I'm just gonna go off video here, right? Because otherwise it will look strange for me to be seeing myself here. Yeah.
Okay, we'll be playing the video now.
Hey everyone, my name is Pong from StrengthsAsia, and I'm so excited to be back second year in a row to the Talent Pavilion. Last year I spoke about you own your conversation, and today it's my great pleasure and privilege to be able to talk about everything is conversation. And I want to start this masterclass with 2 simple questions. My first question of the day is this: what is something that we as adults need to thrive in our lives and at work that we are not teaching our children in schools? Now, I posed this question to leaders of industries, to my clients, to my friends, and here are some really interesting answers that they shared with me. And they said, look, we need children to be more agile. We need them to take more risk. We need them to be more curious, to ask questions, to communicate well, and to be confident. And the list actually goes on and on and on. And when you look at all these insights, there's one thing that ties everything together. And that one thing is conversation. To be agile, to be curious, to take risks, to communicate well, and to be confident, these are not things that you can do alone. You need people to do them with. They all involve you and people around you. Now, unless you and we live in a vacuum and we are infinitely socially distant from each other, everything that we do and experience is a result of the conversations that we will have or the conversations that we have had with people around us. Now, why is that? Because everything is conversation. Being agile is conversation. Taking risk is conversation. Curiosity is conversation. Leadership is conversation. Relationship is conversation. Culture is conversation. Our successes and failures, they are all about the conversations that we have and will have. And my second question for the day is this: when do you feel powerless at work? Now, I asked this question to thousands of people all around the world that comes from my workshops, and here are some of the responses that they gave to me. I feel powerless when I don't have a voice. I feel powerless when I'm not heard. I feel powerless when I'm not understood. I feel powerless when I don't understand why decisions are being made. I feel powerless when I'm ignored. Now, once again, if you look at all these responses, all these events of powerlessness at work, again, they all involve one single thing. And that thing, it's our voice. It's our talk. It's our conversations. Everything is conversation. And in a very large part, ladies and gentlemen, the quality of our lives, of our work and relationships, they all revolve around our talk. There's something just so special about talk, and I am really, really captivated by it. Talk is the most persistent and repeated behavior in every one of us. We do it all the time and every day, and yet many of us do not pay too much attention to the way we talk. We don't really think about how we talk, we just talk. And talking really is like breathing. We can't do without it, we don't think about it, we take it for granted, we just do it. Talk is the invisible and single most taken for granted underdeveloped asset in our lives. The power and the influence of our talk is undeniable. Our talk is that auditory projection that conveys our invisible thoughts, our imaginative ideas, our hidden fears, our unique personalities to people around us. It gives people the ability to comprehend, to understand, to contextualize and make sense of what they see in us, who we are, what we do, why we do, what we think, where we are going. Because without talk, there will be no words. And we could well be just like a silent movie to people, isn't it? They would have to guess the meaning of every gesture, every frown, and every scowl. But with words, ladies and gentlemen, it gives meaning to that gesture, to that frown, to that scowl. People has the context to understand and experience each other. With words, we can make meaningful connections with one another. Do we draw close or do we draw away? Do we agree or do we disagree? How we talk has an immense effect on how people think, feel, and behave around us. Our talk gives people the experience of us. It affects how others see us, believe us, trust us. Talk is action, and they have consequences. When you say something, something will happen. There will be a response, there will be a reaction. And when you and I don't say anything, something else will also happen. Our words, or absence of words, have meaning whether it is intended or not. And whether intended or otherwise, it will always carry a unique response from people around us. Because everything is conversation, in its presence or in its absence. Leadership is conversation, relationship is conversation, culture, success, failure, they are all conversations. So regardless of what you and I do or who you have in your lives, if you want to have greater meaning and purpose, if you want to have greater success in your business, in your lives, if you want to have more quality relationships, a better life, then I believe that your talk is that bridge to getting all of that. Listen to what Kevin Ayre of Soundwave said. He said, amazing things happen between people when the quality of their conversations is good. Your talk is that unique asset that you have that needs to be revealed in your lives. You need to see how you talk, because what you cannot see, you cannot build. What you cannot build, you cannot use. But when you can see how you talk, you can grow it, you can develop it, and you can use it to set the course of your life on fire and change the world around you. Because everything is conversation. Our talk is too important an asset in our lives to be ignored. So I want to take the remaining of our time here to share the 4 myths and truth of our talk. Myth number 1, I cannot change how I talk. Well, first of all, the way we talk is habitual. Now that's a fact. And on top of this, most of us are unaware of how we talk. Now that does not mean that we cannot change. I think the reason why we believe this myth that we cannot change how we talk is because when we look at people around us, we get the impression that people talk the same all the time. I mean, just look at our friends and the people that we've known for a very, very long time, isn't it? How have we known them to talk since the day we knew them? Are they the asking type? Are they the suggesting type? Are they the telling type? Have they changed how they talk since we first knew them? It is most likely that most people that we have known haven't changed much in the way they talk. The askers are likely still be askers, the suggesters are likely to be still suggesting, and the tellers are likely to be still tellers, right? A second reason why I think many of us feel that we cannot change our talk simply lies in the fact that we have subconsciously been practicing our habit of talk over the years of our life. So if you are 25 or 50 years old today, that's how many years you have taken to practice your habit of talking today. Now, 25 or 50 years of practice is a really, really long time. Plus the fact that you are unaware of your habit of talk. And that's why it can feel so difficult to change our talk. But that is a myth, because the truth is that our talk can change. According to Kevin Eyre of Soundwave, he said this: we may be fixated on our talk, but our talk is not fixed. Our talk can be extremely fluid. In other words, we can become more aware, be more skillful, and be more intentional to bring about the right outcomes we want through the way we talk. The truth is this: we can learn to target our talk, to go from intentions to impact, so that we have the ability to shift the dialogue when we want to, change the conversation when we have to, in order to shape the culture the way we want to. Myth number 2. We should listen more and talk less. Now, I'm sure you've heard this before, right? That we all have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and therefore we should learn to talk less and listen more. Now, honestly, I personally find this maxim to be grossly overused in glorifying listening over talking, and in the process, limiting our ability to be great communicators. Why is that? Because it would seem that listening is proclaim the angel and talk the devil, isn't it? Now, because of that, people prefer that you listen more and talk less. But this is a myth, because when voice is needed and silence prevails, opportunities are lost and bad things can happen. This myth can stifle, can silence our voices unnecessarily, because it can make people fearful of talking, and it can blame talk for all the miscommunication and all the unintended consequences. Now, I'm not saying listening is not important, but what I'm saying is this: I don't think listening is more important than talking, because I do think that listening and talking are as important on its own and to each other. We need to listen better to talk better, and we need to talk better in order to listen better. We can talk better by asking better questions, challenging more skillfully, critiquing more objectively, so that we can listen to what we must a whole lot more clearly, a whole lot more contextually. The truth is this, ladies and gentlemen: we need to listen to talk, and we need to talk to listen. Myth number 3. My talk conveys all my intentions. Now listen to what George Bernard Shaw said: the biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Now, everybody, I want you to think about all those colleagues at work that could be seen to be constantly challenging people in meetings, or advocating their views all the time, or probing people all the time, right? And now let's assume that all these colleagues of ours, they genuinely have good intentions. Now, for those colleagues that challenges, their intentions of challenging is change. They are trying to get people to see a different perspective, to understand things differently. But if you are someone that is challenging out of habit, and you are unaware that you're challenging, there is a risk that your challenge may not be seen as a persuasion for change, but your challenge could be seen, could be felt as an attack on people's opinions. Have you felt that about the colleagues that challenges all the time? Similarly, if you are constantly advocating for something that you stand for or believe in, there is a risk that instead of sharing your beliefs, people may feel that you're destroying their beliefs because you are unconscious and unaware in their advocation. Or if you are habitually probing, right, and you are unaware that you're overdoing it, instead of getting the insights that you want, people may actually feel that you're overly intruding into their private space. Our intentions may be good, but how we talk may not be what we intended to convey. It's not what we say that matters, but it's how we say it that makes people feel that it truly matters. Now we come to the last myth, myth number 4. People without authority should not speak up. Now, this is, to me, one of the most important myths that we need to bust, because there are many people that I've spoken to who believes that when they have no authority, they don't have influence at the table. And by authority, what I mean is their appointment, their role, their expertise, their knowledge, their experience. So if they do not have any of that, they feel that they should not be speaking up. There should not be any influence. Now, how many of us actually feel this way? How would you talk? When you're in the presence of people more senior than you are and have more authority than you do. I remember when I was a young banker working for a Singapore bank many years ago, I I did felt the pressure and the need to have authority so that I have the credibility to speak up. And without that authority, I kept silent and spoke only when spoken to. And all my colleagues pretty much did the same thing. Everybody, did the same thing. Everybody told the unspoken line: no authority, no talk. It were the senior people at the table that control all the conversations. They critique and challenge the decisions. They have the unquestioned confidence and power in dictating the flow of the conversations. The rest of us watched, nodded, and answered when needed. Now, perhaps that's just my experience from years and years ago. Maybe this is no longer the case nowadays, or maybe not. Because if it is, then it is a myth that we need authority in order for our voices to be heard. This myth that we believe in, it confuses power with influence, because power comes with authority, and where there is authority, there is the power to make decisions. But if you pause and think a little bit about it, the truth is this: for you and I to speak up, we don't need power with authority. We need influence without authority. We may not have the power to make the decisions, we may not have the authority, but the truth is this: we can have the influence over those decisions, over that authority. And that influence, ladies and gentlemen, can be found in your voice. It is found in the way that you choose to talk, not habitually, but skillfully, intentionally, curiously, and with influence. We don't always have to talk to inform. We can change and choose to talk differently. We can talk so as to be informed. We can choose to influence by asking questions, because sometimes great questions are simply better than smart answers. We can choose to influence by being teachable, by speaking and leading from curiosity rather than from expertise. We can choose to influence by being courageously vulnerable, by holding our courage and daring to change our habitual conversations to understand and engage other people better. Now, we don't need authority to speak up, but we do need to know how to talk differently in order to speak up. We can actually learn to have influence without authority. And this lies not in a monologue, it lies in a skillful dialogue. It lies in our conversations. So if you resonated with all that I have been sharing so far, here are 5 things that you can do to become more aware, more intentional, and more skillful in your talk. Number 1, replying or understanding. From today onwards, start noticing what you are doing when people are talking with you. Are you listening to reply, or are you listening to understand? Now, Stephen Covey, the guy that wrote The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he observed that many people listen to reply rather than to understand. Now, Peter Senge, the author of The 5th Discipline, observed that managers advocate too much and inquire too little. Understanding context is key to relevance. And the failure to understand is the failure to reply. In our conversations and in our talk, we can do what Stephen Covey advised: seek to understand so as to be understood. Number 2, acknowledging others in our conversations. Now, according to Tim Clark, the author of The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety, the need for inclusion is the most basic human need. People want to be recognized, they want to be heard, they want to be included. If they were to feel safe with you and be engaged with you, they need to feel that they are included in your conversations. So let me ask you this: in your conversations with people, how do you respond? Do you respond by acknowledging their views first, or do you unintentionally ignore them and respond with your own views? Have you been distracted before in a conversation? Do you multitask, or do you interrupt people in their conversations? Now, if your answer is yes to any of those questions, well, here are 3 simple steps that you can take to acknowledge people in your conversations. Step 1, echo back. So if I'm hearing you telling me, hey, Kim Pong, it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? I can echo back to you by saying, yeah, I can see what you mean when you are talking about A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Or I could say, gosh, what I'm hearing from you is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. All right? That's echoing back. Step number 2, ask a question where it is possible. Ask a clarifying question. People loves it when you are checking in with them, there's always room to make sure that the context of the conversation is what you and your friends think it is. So I could say, hey, what I'm hearing from you is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Can I ask why AB is in A, B, C, D, E, F, G? That is asking a clarifying question. Now step number 3, giving your response. So when you and I echo back and we engage others with our question, what we are really trying to do is telling people that, hey, we see you, right? And we heard you. And when that happens, people feels included and they will seek influence to us, to you in that conversation. In other words, we are preparing them to be more ready, more willing to hear what our response to them is all about and what we want to say to them. So number 3, WAIT, wait. Now, WAIT is an acronym for Why Am I Talking? Now, I love this really, really much because this is one of the simplest reminders I've used to be more purposeful, more effective in all my conversations in the way I talk. And in my mind, when I'm talking to people, I'm literally telling myself, wait, why am I talking, right? Am I rambling? Am I lost my way? Am I getting to my question or to the point? Am I informing you or do I want to be informed by you? That wait reminder, can trigger my conversation to go from telling people what to do to asking people what they would do. So that's wait. And now we come to number 4, give the response others want from you. Now, sometimes the easiest and best way of engaging people in our talk is simply to ask them, how do you want me to respond to what you just said? It is just as direct as that. And people are happiest when they are receiving from you what they are expecting from you. So if they're expecting you to ask and you ask, and if they want you to suggest and you suggested, or they want you to tell and you told them certain things, that would make them a whole lot more happier, a whole lot more engaged in the conversation. Share with people what they want to hear from you. And last but not least, number 5, sound wave. Now, finally, if you want something a little bit more specific about how you talk and how you can talk a whole lot better, I would like to recommend Soundwave. Go and do the Soundwave Brilliance 3 assessment. This is an online assessment that takes about 20 minutes to complete. It's really, really easy. It's really, really fast, right? And once done, the report will reveal to you your top 3 voices that you frequently and habitually use in all your conversations. And this is a great starting point because what you can see, you can invest into it, you can develop it. And your Soundwave Brilliance report lets you see the data and information on 3 things. Number 1, your top 3 preferred voices. Now for my top 3, it's inquire, it's probe, it's advocate. And number 2, it shows you the strength and weaknesses in how you talk. And number 3, the Soundwave B3 report gives you some suggestions on how you can talk even better. So that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have found my sharing this today to be really, really useful for you. But before I end, let me leave these 3 things with you. Number 1, Soundwave has done a really good job in figuring out how people talk. So I want to share with you a resource from Soundwave that I think you definitely would want to download. This resource gives you details on what are the voices or the verbal strategies that are available to us in all our conversations. They give you the definition and the distinct qualities of all the different voices that we have. So go ahead and download the resource because you definitely will find it very useful. Number 2, go ahead and send us an email that's listed here if you want to find out more about what you've heard from me today, or if you're looking at how you can bring quality conversations and engagement to your teams. All right. And finally, 3, check out our website at StrengthsAsia to find out some of the programs that we run publicly throughout the year. It might be something that you are just looking for. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, thank you so much for spending this time with me. And I would like to end this session with one of my favorite quotes from Abraham Lincoln. And he said this, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." I remember the first time when I heard this, I told myself, if I don't like somebody, I will run away from that guy. But here Abraham Lincoln understands the power of conversations. I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. Our talk is not fixed. Our talk is fluid because everything is conversation and amazing things do happen between people when the quality of the conversations is good. This is Kim Pong. Thank you very much. See ya.
Hi, we have come to the end of the video. Now we have a Q&A session with Kim Pong himself here. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask in the chat or just ask away.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, for facilitating this. A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Kim Pong. I'm so glad that you stayed back through the session, listening to Everything is Conversation. And I really, really sincerely hope that whatever I've shared with you guys, it's at least useful and relevant to you, right? So I would love, to hear your insights, to hear your comments, or any other questions that you may have. So you can either open mic and just speak to me directly, or if you prefer, use the chat box and engage me in the questions here, right? So we'll just take a few minutes just to wait for your response here. So I hear that Malika has sent in something here, and I'm just going to read that. Interesting insights. How do I find the courage to ask questions, especially to my leaders and to my bosses here? Malika, that's a really, really good question here. And I think it really lies in, I think, number one, knowing, first of all, what is your role in the organization? I think it starts with that, right? Are you there just to push buttons, or are you there to influence decision, for the very best of everybody or in the organization here? And I think, Malika, you start off with a very simple idea. First of all, figure out what are some of the ways that you use to talk to people. And you may find that sometimes, right, you may be leaning into your expertise or your knowledge before you dare to speak up on something. And that's what I call leading from expertise, leading from authority, leading from experience here. And a lot of times this happens to us when we're dealing with people who are much more senior than we are. So one great suggestion for you, Malika, lead from curiosity. One of my great friends always tell me this, Kim Pong, sometimes great questions are always better than smart answers. So ask questions, right? Ask, hey, boss, can I check with you on this? Why did we make that decision? And why did we choose, not to make the other decision? We'll love your insights for that. Your ability to ask great questions, Malika, is going to give you that influence and that attention and that visibility before your bosses. Yeah. So I hope I've answered that question for you, Malika. Again, opening up to the platform again. Who else would there be any questions? Thank you. All right, I think I saw another chat coming in.
Kim Pong, let me help you read the question. So the question,
yeah, please.
In the chat. Okay, so that's a question from Diana. Any advice on how we can listen better?
Oh, wow. Any advice on how we can listen better? Well, one of the very interesting things that I've discovered is this, right? When the proof of the pudding that we are listening better is that actually people are receiving what they're expecting from us, right? So in other words, it's how I respond to people. So now, Sue, to answer that question, to be honest, there are a variety of ways of skinning the cat here, if I may say. But let me just give something very visual and very easy to understand here. The way we respond to people, there are essentially 4 different ways in which you can respond to people. We can either destroy the conversation, ignore the conversation, or patronize the conversation, or engage people in the conversation. So for example, right, Dina or Sue, right, you come to me and say, hey, Kim Pong, I just had the best pizza in Mario's, right? I can destroy your conversation by saying, oh gosh, that's the worst place to be eating, right? Have you tried Luigi's instead, right? So that's destroying. I can ignore your conversation by saying, gosh, have you done your homework yet, right? Or I could patronize you by saying, my gosh, that's a kind of interesting place. But hey, by the way, have you done your homework yet, right? So this shows us that we are not listening. We are essentially getting in there to respond. And very often we are very subconscious and unintentional in destroying, ignoring, or patronizing. Now, when we listen, we actually are engaging the conversation. So one of the best way to do this is this, right? Go to your friends, go to people who are really close to you, go to your husbands, to your wives, to your intimate partners or whatever, and ask them the question, how have I been responding to our conversation since you know me, right? Do I destroy? Do I ignore? Do I patronize? Or do I engage? Now, if your friends or your partners tells you, Pong, you are always destroying, ask them why, right? Be open, be courageous, ask them why. Then you'll realize that actually, it is not that you are not trying to help people or trying to respond to people. It's just that you're not hearing people for what they're saying. And in the process, instead of helping people, it come across as maybe even destroying the conversation unintentionally. So Dina, I guess this is one good way to kind of learn how to listen better. Ask people, how have you been responding? And then ask yourself, why did I respond? And then kind of take a step backwards. Okay, I should be listening a little bit more carefully before I respond, unintentionally. So I hope that's been useful. All right. I'm not sure if there's any. Yeah. Go for it, Sue.
For your great insight. I also just want to have a suggestion for the audience for those who are comfortable, just to turn on your videos and yourself. Let's really make this session a very conversational one with Kim Pong here, and to offer us tips on how to improve our communications, and so that we can have better relationships. I'm sure that's what all of us want, right? So for those who feel comfortable, unmute yourself. Yeah. Any more questions? Keep the questions coming.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm all here to serve you guys here whenever you're ready.
Well, well, they're kind of like turning on the videos, unmuting, and I do have actually the questions come up from Sophia. How do you manage emotions in an already fired up exchange?
Wonderful.
Yeah, a lot
Sophia, thank you so much. So sorry to interrupt because the connection is coming in and out intermittently. So
okay. I'll mute myself too.
No, nothing to do with you. It's just me.
Okay.
Sophia, thank you for the question. And before I answer the question, Sophia, can I just ask you to turn on your mic and just share with me a little bit about the context of that question, if you may?
Well, it could be with a partner or at work where everyone is under tension, having a lot of stress, trying to meet deadlines. So, there's always triggers, and most people would just react to it. And so the thing is like how to even get a hold of that control of the emotions, right? Before you even practice good communication, does it require us to always be in a Zen mode, emotional, like, pulsing, very deadly kind of situation?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. And it's a really, really good question. I think, first of all, I think we have to be real. We have to be authentic, right? So if you're someone who is really excitable, you're someone who is very actionable, you're someone who is very energetic, I think trying to be Zen or trying to be like kind of really chill and cool out, I mean, that's really against the very fiber of your authenticity, isn't it? So I think, number one, be authentic, right? But being authentic doesn't mean that we are jerks, right? Being authentic means that, hey, we become of value to people around us for who we are, being the unique person here. So I think there are 2 or 3 ideas that I can share with you on that. And I actually covered them in my talk just now. The first one is the acronym WAIT, wait, right? Why am I talking? So you know yourself best, Sophia. In other words, I think you kind of know what triggers you. I mean, sometimes, we are triggered by the mere presence of that individual in the room, right? Cannot tahan you, cannot take you, right? The minute you talk only, I react, right? Or sometimes we are, and sometimes we are triggered, by certain values that people are espousing, or certain kind of, situations where we got really no control over. So my suggestion is this: you know yourself best. So before you go into the conversation, kind of be a little bit mentally ready for those triggers. And if you sense it, the first thing is, wait, W-A-I-T. Why am I talking, right? Why am I talking? That allows you to be a lot more clearer on how you respond instead of reacting. That's one. The second thing that you and I can do is to do this very simple thing called echoing back. Now, when I echo back, so for example, right, Sophia, you could say, Kim Pong, you've just done something really, really silly. And because of the decision that you made, we just messed up big time. Now that is pretty hurtful when I hear something like this, and it's quite natural for me to react back to you, right? But the way I can control my emotion is to echo back, right? I can say, hey, Sophia, what I just heard from you is that you're telling me that I made a mistake, and because of that, the team made a mistake, right? Am I correct to say that? Now, when I do that, two things happen. Number one, I'm checking if I've heard you wrongly. That's one. Number two, I've just slowed down the process for my reptilian brain here, right? To be thinking a little bit more. Can somebody mute your microphone? Thank you. To be thinking a little bit more clearly on how to respond to you. So I'm not reacting, but I'm buying myself some time to be responding. And the third way to respond is not to respond with a statement, but to respond with a question. All right, help me understand, Sophia. What did I do that made us make all the wrong decisions? Even though you just told me something about it, but I'm not going to assume that I understood it in the same context or at the same level as you do. I'm going to ask you that question. Now, so these are the three things, right? WAIT, wait, echo back, ask a question. I think that simple process is really, really good. Now, another way to do it, Sophia, is what I recommended towards the end of my talk here. And that is to get onto Soundwave and do your own assessment. Because it is quite, so the assessment will give you your top three voices, right? That means the way you naturally would respond to people anyway, right? Now, if you know that to be the fact, so for example, I've inquire, advocate, so inquire, probe, and advocate. Those are my top three voices, right? Very often, I respond to people using these three voices very subconsciously on good times and bad times. Now, if it's good times, it's usually very useful for me. But when I'm unconscious, when I'm triggered by emotions and I use a voice of advocate, oh my gosh, you don't want to be in the same room with me when I'm using that voice, because I can be super pushy, super unreasonable. I stop listening to you, and I'm basically just pressing everything, into you, based on my own perspective and never on other people's perspective. And because of the emotions, it adds on to that variety of ugliness, right, in the conversations. So I hope I've answered your question, Sophia. Over to you. Thank you.
Oh yeah, it's thank you. Yeah, that's some years back. I think you might have. I'm not sure if you find me familiar. I'm trying to revive. Kim Pong, do you remember Sophia, the cocksack that worked with you some years back?
Oh my gosh, you're the same Sophia. You have changed quite a fair bit, so I don't recognize you on TV here. Of course, I remember you. Yeah. Now that because when I saw you, I thought you were kind of familiar looking, but I wasn't sure because your hair is different. Your looks.
Yeah, the hair grew a bit longer.
yeah. It's good to see you again.
Well, I'm glad that you find a familiar face on.
Yeah. So Sue, you can tell that you can tell the Talent Pavilion is connecting old friends all over again.
I am so glad to hear that. And please keep the question coming. And conversation is a very, very important topic. That impacts our everyday life. And thank you so much for your insights and perspective. And now I know echo back. It's a very useful tips. Asking questions also.
It is. So let me just add on one more point, and for those of us who wants to ask more questions, go ahead, turn on the microphone, or just use the chat box and ask the questions, right? One of the most powerful ways of conversations, everybody, is not to tell everybody what's on your mind, right? But is to clarify with people what's on their mind. Now, I'll tell you why that is so important. In Timothy Clark, right, the guy that wrote quite a bit on psychological safety, he actually made this observation that the most innate human need is the need to be included, right? You go to a team, you go to an organization, if people don't talk to you, people don't invite you for lunch, people kind of ignore you, you feel miserable. No matter how good your work is, right? You feel miserable. The most innate need in people is to be included. And one of the best ways to include people is through the way you talk to people. And you got to ask yourself the question, right? What is it that I can say to you and I that will make sure that you are being heard by me, and to make sure that you're being included in my conversation? Now, many organizations talk about diversity, right? We want diversity, we want to embrace diversity. But how do you do this? Embracing diversity isn't just putting different people into the same room. Embracing diversity is really about learning the skill of engaging each other in the same room. And that ability to engage very often is in the ability of conversation, right? How do you talk to people who are so different from you? And if you're talking about diverse situation in highly innovative environments, hey, the pressure is huge, yeah? So if you do not know how to talk, then you do have a limit to your innovation, you have a limit to your agility, you have a limit to, to whatever you're trying to do here, right? But if you figure out how to talk, how to agree more or disagree less productively, right? Not about agreeing or disagreeing with people, but how to agree or disagree productively with one another, and that skill lies in your conversation. My gosh, you can do magical things here, right? So I thought I'll just add that in while I'll buy you guys some time to ask me more questions if there is.
Yeah, thank you for that additional perspective. I definitely can appreciate that, especially in today's workforce, that we value diversity. But when it comes, diversity also about challenges when different people meet and, trying to work together as a team. And so what you suggest was just so important. Is there any more questions in the audience? Yes, we have one more. Is curiosity a skill that we can practice? If so, how can we be more curious? That's a very good question.
All right, I think that question came from Mike. So Mike, thank you very much for the question. Is curiosity something that can be practiced? The answer is yes, right? I think very often we are driven by our habits. And a lot of times our habits are driven by the way we talk. Let me give you an example, right? If I am someone that constantly challenges people, I can actually stop being curious because I'm always challenging people, right? And it's interesting, right? Because it's a little bit oxymoronic. So give me a little bit of time to explain this. We see something that somebody is saying, and let's say we are constantly challenging people. We want to challenge the individual because we want that person to see a different perspective. And we are saying, gosh, that person is so incurious. Why isn't he or she seeing it from a different perspective? But able to hit the pause button for a little bit and ask the question, is it that person that is incurious or is it me that is incurious, right? That becomes something that you can think a little bit about, right? Because if I'm going to be challenging you, it could be because I lack curiosity to try to understand why you say what you say, right? In other words, the next time before you challenge anybody, ask yourself, how can I be more curious about why that person is sticking to the status quo or why it's a person insisting on that particular way of being done? Curiosity is not agreeing. Curiosity is understanding. So that's one thing, right? You can learn to change your perspective by asking yourself, am I curious enough to understand you? That's one. The second thing is this, you need to have some skills in order to be curious, right? So one of the interesting skills that you need to ask yourself is to ask question, right? What is happening now? And what is it that I do not know, right? Not so much as what I assume I know, but what is it that I do not know, right? And a lot of times, I'm not sure whether you're in conversation like this, right? People say something to you and you say, yeah, I get it. And you move on to the next piece here, right? Pause that button again. Do you truly know what that person really is saying? Our lack of curiosity our lack of curiosity drives us to make assumptions on the meanings of people. Now, the human conversations are complex. And actually, once you make the assumption, I think some people will say, you make an S out of you and me, right? I mean, ASS, you and me, right? But the whole idea is this, right? Learn to ask the question, okay, I hear what you're saying, right? Could you just, do you mean this, right? You clarify, do you mean this? That's curiosity in action here. It is not assuming the answers, but it's about clarifying the answers. And let me give you one more here, Mike. The lack of curiosity very often are conversations that are stuck in the past. That means you're leading from expertise, you're leading from experience, you're leading from something that you've known before or you've done before. But if you were to say, look, if this is something I've never done before, and it feels kind of scary and risky to be doing this, and because of that, I don't want to try it, I don't want to know about it, well, you have just shut down curiosity. But if you realize, my gosh, you're talking from the past, being curious sometimes is about gravitating the conversation into the present or into the future. Ask some questions about, all right, so why are we doing this now? Ask some question, hey, what would happen, right, if we don't do this, right, in the future? So it's a present and future conversations. So Mike, I hope I've, kind of answered a little bit of your questions here. Sue, back to you. I think there's another question that came in.
Yeah, there's another question, but definitely wanted to emphasize, yes, being curious and seek to understand. The next question, how has being more aware of how you talk changed things for you?
Oh my goodness. I'll share a personal story with you guys, and this is a heartbreaking story. All right. So I pitch to many clients all the time. And there was a time I pitched to a very big company, very famous, and I'll tell you the name of the company because I'm not revealing anything that we talked about. And I was pitching to the Disney company, right? And I tell you, I would, in my mind, the deal is in the back, right? I think these guys will become my clients. But because of my lack of understanding of how I talk, when I'm under pressure, I would use a particular voice, which I didn't know at the time. And my under pressure voice is the voice of advocate. Now, as I was sharing with Sophia just now, right? When I'm overusing my advocate, I stop listening to people. I stop pushing my agenda. And that's what exactly happened to me when I was pitching to Disney. I stopped listening to my clients. I started pushing my agenda. And of course, right, who will want to engage me if I'm doing that? So they basically was very polite. So, Kim Pong, thank you very much. Please send me a proposal. And you know that when people say something to you like this, right? You know it's the death knell on the door, right? So that was probably the biggest takeaway for me. Now, understanding my voices enabled me to be more aware of the triggers here. So when I get into a meeting in the future, I go into the meeting with what I call a simple verbal strategy, right? What kind of voices do I want to use with specific people? What kind of voices do I want to use with specific clients? Because I can mentally train myself to be more curious by using different voices to talk to people. I can mentally train myself to listen differently by using different voices to talk to different people. Remember what I said, right? I have to listen to talk and I have to talk to listen. So knowing our voices is really, really powerful because you see, guys, you and I talk every day, right? But we never think about how we talk every day. We constantly think about what do we want to talk about every day. And yet, why is it that no matter how good the content is, sometimes it just falls flat, sometimes we are being ignored by people? The reason is simple. It is not because of, let me just end this call here, so sorry.
I think just hang in there. I think he may have just accidentally checked out. Let's just give him a few seconds to come back on while you continue to think on this very important topic on conversation. Keep the questions coming. I'm very sure that he's going to be back on in no time. Okay. Let me text to make sure he knows how to get back on. Kenneth, do you mind sending him the link again? Yeah, for those who just joined, this is the masterclass on everything is conversation. The speaker just probably okay, he's back on. It's okay, Kim Pong, you're fine. Okay, we'll give you a few seconds before you continue your sharing. Kim Pong, yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're still muted, Kim Pong. Please unmute.
Yeah, I'm off. Yeah, thank you. So I apologize for that. I got an incoming call from the Ministry of Health regarding my my booster shot here.
Okay, but that's important. But let's get back onto this conversation.
I know. Yeah. Okay. So where was I? I cannot remember exactly where I left off here, but I think the idea really is, knowing how I talk really is, it enables me, right, to have specific verbal strategies in talking to different people. so that I can go from intentions to impact here. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you. Thank you for that insightful perspective. Let me share the next question from Sophia. Again, communication is like a dance. It takes two to clap. How do you communicate with someone who is not at the same technical mastery? I think that is a very good question, especially in this fintech space, in the fintech startup where people come from different backgrounds working together. You talked about diversity earlier. What were just your recommendations for Sophia?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think this is a question that's constantly asked of me, right? So some people say, hey, Kim Pong, you train people, to know their voices through sound wave, for example. Do everybody needs to have sound wave in order to talk to you, right? The answer is no, of course not, right? Because I think knowing your own voices simply makes you a whole lot more aware about yourself and how you can engage people intentionally, right? The idea is simple, Sue, that if we know how we talk, it's like you kind of know the kind of tools that you can bring to the market to use, right? So if you know how you talk, then you can also know how to target your talk at different types of people. People who are reticent, people who are quiet, people who are aggressive, people who are energetic, people who are engaging, right? And because you're meeting different kind of people, you can, and because of your awareness in how you talk, you are able to, target your talk like they are, different tools that you want to use with specific different people here. So to be able to do something like this really frees you to change your conversation to fit the demographics and stakeholders in order to bring about the outcomes that you want. So that's a very quick answer to that question here, Sue. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you for that perspective. Another question from Getty. Do you think talk and cadence is important?
So I guess when you say talk and cadence, it's about talk and rhythms, right? I think, okay, so ever notice how some people, when they talk, they sound kind of boring, even though they make a lot of sense? The reason for that is because there is a lack of cadence in the voice, right? So when I talk about cadence, I'm not talking about, the intonations up and down here. For me, my understanding of cadence, I don't know who's asking the question here, but for me, the understanding of cadence is rhythm, right? Now, have you ever gone to YouTube videos, right, where they take someone talking and then they superimpose that person's talking into someone who is drumming, right? So you realize that the people who are very effective speakers, they match a certain kind of rhythm. There's a certain kind of percussiveness in the way they talk. There's a certain kind of tempo. There's a certain kind of emphasis. So when that actually is happening, people enjoy those conversations a whole lot more better. So the answer is, yeah, I think cadence would definitely help in the effectiveness of of people. Yep. Back to you, Sue. Thank you.
All right. Well, Dawn, to what you just mentioned, Dawn has another question. How do you train cadence?
Gosh, I don't train people in their cadence. That's not my specialty here, right? But the way I do it is this, right? I realize that everybody have your own unique cadence, and you can do this by perhaps recording yourself, right? And then asking yourself, which way do you speak that people and you find most engaging and find most, attentive. Now, once you have figured that out, you will notice that there's a certain speed, rhythm, and ups and downs on that, right? Then the question for you is this, right? How do you learn to speak with a particular cadence? I mean, if you listen, for example, to, I think the best person to use as an illustration for this would be Obama. The way he talks is very, he'll speak a few words, he pauses, speak a few words, he pauses, speak a few words, he pauses. If we put all those words together, it is a rhythm, right? And the rhythm repeats itself throughout. Listen to how Donald Trump talks, right? Same thing, there's a cadence to that. That's why you're able to recognize these people simply by the rhythms. So can you train it? I believe you can, but you probably need some help. For me, the way I learn myself is I record myself very often. and then I listen to myself. And then the other thing I do is this, I splice music into the way I talk to figure out what rhythms there are, what tempos there are, what moods there are. And you can say that sometimes when I'm talking, music is playing in the back of my head, while I'm talking. So there's a certain kind of, speed or momentum going on there. Okay, I'm digressing here, so I'm going to pause here and stop. Back to Sue here. Thank you.
No, I can definitely echo really what you just said. Using pauses. It's a very, very powerful tool. And not sure about the music because I don't have a good sense of rhythm, but I'll try what you just recommend. Is there any?
Yeah, but Sue, I just need to say, right, the way you're talking right now, there's a certain specific cadence to your voice, right? The way you're talking, but because that's you, right? So you may be very subconscious that you are actually very rhythmic in the way we talk. So the question is, right, it's about how do you kind of put into that rhythm the right voice with the right words. When I say voice, I don't mean in tonality. I'm asking you, right? Are you using the voice to ask? Are you using the voice to suggest? Are you using the voice to tell, right? Because everything is conversations here. Yeah, back to you, Sue.
Okay, well, I want to be mindful of time. We have 3 minutes left. I know some of the audience have just joined the conversation. I think they may have missed out on a lot of great tips and recommendations that you have shared from the beginning of the video and also our conversations. With 3 minutes left, would you like to have some closing remark for the audience to take back? Some recommendations.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my closing remark is I'm going to be unashamedly, pluck Soundwave in front of everybody here. I mean, I don't own Soundwave. Somebody else owns it. But go ahead, and go to the soundwave.global website, right? SOUNDWAVE.global. Go to their website, and look around there. There is a simple assessment that you can purchase for a very small price, right? And do your Soundwave assessment. You take it from me, right? You'll benefit from simply knowing what are your top 3 preferred ways of talking, right? What are your top 3 preferred ways of talking? And then ask yourself some simple question, right? How have they helped me, right? What kind of power did they give to me? And what kind of trouble did they give to me? I'll tell you that takeaway was amazing for me personally. So those are my last words here. Sue, over to you.
Thank you, Kim Pong. Personally, just maybe a little testimony here. I have taken Soundwave, and that has been quite life-changing. So I would like to recommend for those for all of us in the audience to Kenneth have put that link onto the chat. Please
thank you.
Click on that chat. Click on that link and take the test. And this may be the best thing you can do, which is to kind of know your voice, and that is very instrumental and will help your conversations in the future. And thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I know that it is out of your busy schedule, and I also want to thank Kim Pong for doing this and every year for Talent Pavilion. Thank you, Kim Pong.
Thank you, Sue, for the invitation, and thank you, Kenneth, for the facilitation, and thank you, everybody, for coming and staying. So yeah, have a great session in the next couple of days. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kim Pong, and thank you all.
Thank you, Kim Pong.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.